The Oracl3 Network.
We have an active shooter. We have an active shooter inside the warehouse.
Welcome to Active Shooter, a podcast that covers the whys, the hows, and the aftermath of active shooter and mass casualty events.
They have an active shooter in the building. A second call says they are being attacked.
I've been shot. 1692 means we got shots fired. 4:15 ASL. Route 91 sounded like an automatic firearm.
Active shooter, reports of an active shooter,
mass casualty incidents.
Thank you for listening.
You are listening to Active Shooter, a podcast that may contain adult themes, explicit language, and graphic depictions of violence. Portions of this show may be traumatic for those under 18. Listener discretion is advised.
We begin today with a breaking news update.
We have two callers, one stating there are people getting shot. We have a second caller stating that they're just hearing shots. We got a couple different things going on here.
That call out of Menasha where 4 people are dead, 1 injured after what police call a random shooting on the Trestle Trail Bridge in the town of Menasha.
Investigators spent a better part of the night trying to figure out what exactly happened here. And actually, police are back on the scene this morning. They can be seen driving up and down the trail. Officers are walking the bridge trying to collect more evidence. Now, for now, we don't have many details about the events leading up to the shooting. The incident happened at 7:30 last night. When police arrived, 3 people were dead. 2 were taken to the hospital with injuries, including the shooter. Menasha police say responding officers did not fire their weapons after arriving to the scene, and they believe the male shooter was later pronounced dead at the hospital. The surviving victim underwent surgery and is in critical condition this morning at Theta Clark Hospital.
We tend to think we know everything about active shooter stories, at least those that become saturated with media coverage. But the horrifying reality is that most shootings the general public has some knowledge about only make up a very tiny minority of the vast number of mass shooting events that occur on a near daily basis. While a handful of shootings are covered to the exclusion of all else, some hardly garner more attention than an article in the local paper or an evening news story. There is no rhyme or reason for which reports will elicit so much emotion or outrage from the public that the media can't or won't leave it alone. Indeed, no one story deserves more investigation, coverage, or justice than another. Yet, imagine coming face to face with a deranged killer, one fully prepared to execute you and your entire family, all within a moment's notice. However, your story hardly garners more than the briefest of mentions. How would it feel to be in that category of being infamous or notorious, but also an ordinary person? Victims of mass shooting events are far, far more than their victim-survivor status. Yet many become known precisely for that disturbing reason. That is certainly the case for Erin Stoffel, a gregarious young woman whose entire life was torn apart in mere seconds, when nearly half of her family was murdered in cold blood. Along with countless others, she is impacted each day by those terrifying moments at the Trestle Trail Bridge on Sunday, May 3rd, 2015. Active Shooter the podcast is a High Five Holly production, and I'm your host, JT. If you've listened to our prior episodes, you know that the Active Shooter podcast team has taken the no notoriety pledge, and we will not be sharing the real name of the shooters that we cover. We will be giving the shooters a pseudonym and refer to them by that name throughout the episode. This will help in clearing up any confusion in the story, while remaining true to our pledge and not naming the shooter by their actual name. In today's episode, we will be referring to the shooter as Ryan. May 3rd, 2015 was a beautiful day in Menasha, Wisconsin, a small city located in Winnebago County. Perhaps it was a combination of nice weather and a weekend day that brought residents outside to enjoy the Trestle Trail Bridge, which is precisely as described. A system of trails with a beautiful bridge designed for pedestrian crossing. At the Trestle Trail Bridge, around 75 to 100 people were out, enjoying the evening. No one could imagine that the picturesque afternoon would evolve into a deadly shooting that left 3 people dead, 1 person injured, and hundreds of others with serious direct and secondary trauma. 27-year-old Ryan had the intent to shoot and kill multiple people, purposely choosing a place that would be well populated throughout the day. He entered the park sometime in the evening hours, though the exact time doesn't appear to be known. What is known is that the first 911 call was placed at 7 p.m. by a man named Kevin. Kevin reported that he saw a large group of people fleeing from the bridge towards him. Suddenly, someone running past cried out to Kevin to call the police, specifically 911, because someone was on the bridge, shooting at people. Kevin needed to call for help right away.
I heard the gunshots. I dismissed it. I said, "There's no way those were gunshots." I said, "It's got to be fireworks," And then I heard a lot of sirens shortly afterwards.
And that's when you knew.
Yes, actually, I got a text from somebody who told me about it.
The person who was yelling out didn't have their own phone to make the 911 call. A second 911 call was placed shortly after the first, this time saying that it seemed as though many people were shot and help was needed. There were at least another 3 calls placed to 911 for emergency services. Remarkably, the Menasha Police Department responded within 1 minute. Listeners, you heard that right. 1 minute.
Hi, I think I'm hearing shots fired on the Trestle Trail across.
On the Trestle Trail? Where on the trail?
Right about in the middle.
Okay, did you hear anything other than shots?
Yeah, you see people running, and I see people laying down on the Trestle Trail.
Did anyone see anything?
I don't know. We were about to get on the bridge, and there's people running saying that there are people getting shot.
Okay, do we know how many people?
Nope. I have no idea.
Additional agencies such as the Appleton Police Department, Neenah Police Department, Winnebago County Sheriff's Department, and the Wisconsin State Police arrived to provide backup and much-needed assistance. As officers arrived, they could immediately see bodies laying in the middle of the trail. On the east side of the park, a command center was organized while a secure safe zone was set up in the park, near a pavilion. This offered a place for aid to be rendered in a safe fashion. The police formed small groups and started to clear the park. Because they still didn't know who or where the shooter was, several groups of officers were sent out strictly as cover for other groups of police. The shooter was originally described as wearing a black tracksuit that had bright green accents. However, this was not Ryan. The initial description was of the man who asked Kevin to call for help because he didn't have a phone. The first shooting victim was Adam Bentall, who was shot in the head at point-blank range. He died immediately. Moments later, the Stoffel family was walking along the trail when they saw a man who looked directly at them, spoke the words, quote, "You didn't see anything," and then opened fire.
It can't be gunshots. Come on, it's just not something on the radar. You thought it's got to be some kind of fireworks.
John, Aaron, Ezra, Olivia, and Selah Stoffel were walking the trail's bridge on the evening of May 3rd. The family drove there, parked their van at the Fritz Park parking lot, and entered the bridge, thinking it was a beautiful evening for a walk. Ezra was walking in front of the group, along with the family dog, Sammy. Just behind him was Selah, who was just ahead of her mom, Erin. John and Olivia headed up the rear. Suddenly they all heard a loud bang, but they didn't know what it was. As Erin reached the pavilion, she looked ahead, taking note of her kids, Ezra and Selah, who were a little past the pavilion, Out of the corner of her eye, Erin saw a man, who was later identified as Adam, laying on the ground. He appeared dead. And he was. Adam had been shot by the man who was standing nearby, holding something that he was trying to hide in his bag.
The Stoffels, who happened to be walking across the bridge at that exact time, were witness to that homicide.
Olivia was walking between her parents when suddenly Erin told her children to run, unsure who could hear her and who could respond to her. Taking Selah's hand, Erin ran, knowing at this point that Ezra was further ahead, walking with Sammy, the family's dog. Erin was shot first, in her leg. Erin recalls seeing John and Olivia fall at the same time, though she believes she and John were shot at the same time.
Decided to make our way back so the kids could go to the park. So in the middle of this bridge, there is a red pavilion. As we were walking up to it, and John and I had no conversation at all between us about this situation, but we saw a man, two men. One man was laying on a bench on his side, and then this other man was standing near him. And something in my it just didn't feel right to me. And Ezra was up ahead with the dog and past that point already, and the two girls were with us. And yeah, so I kept walking and the girls were walking with me. And if you knew John, if there was a situation like that, I think no matter what, he would try and help in some way. And so he actually walked toward the man that was standing, and I kept going. But then when I realized he stopped, I stopped. And I don't know the exact calculations how far we were from each other, but it was far enough where I couldn't reach him, but it was close enough where I could hear him. And I heard the man say to John, I don't know what happened. He just fell over. And this man was carrying a satchel in front of him. And behind that satchel was his hand. And 2 seconds later, after he said that, he pulled out a gun and shot John. And then he shot me.
Knowing she couldn't give up, she mustered her strength, grabbed Selah's hand, and started running. Both Olivia and John were shot and killed. Later, Erin recalled that she and John were shot at nearly the same time. She saw her husband, then her daughter, fall to the ground. Erin rushed to her husband, who whispered his final words to his beloved wife. He told her to forgive the shooter.
The last thing I heard John say to the man that was killing him was, "May God forgive you."
Before she could think any further, Erin took off running again. She needed to save her children, and this meant leaving behind her husband and daughter, who were both shot. Ryan fired off 2 or 3 shots towards Selah and Ezra as they ran. Thankfully, he missed, and the kids were not hit. On the other hand, Erin wasn't so lucky. She was again hit in the hand and then in the abdomen. Literally running on adrenaline, Erin reached the end of the bridge and collapsed. She managed to call out to the kids to get help.
We all fell down and got back up again. Made it the hardest decision of my life, which was to grab my youngest daughter, who was 5, and she was not harmed, but I grabbed her hand and started running to go get help, but I could not reach John or Olivia. They were too far from me. All I knew was I had to get help. And I took the second that I had and started running with Selah. And as we were running, we got caught up to Ezra. And I remember Selah said to me, "Mom, you're bleeding." And little did I know, I was shot 2 more times. One through the stomach and one in the hand. And I felt no pain yet. I didn't even feel the bullets go through me. But that's, I think, the first moment that I realized what was happening. I felt a gush of blood go down my legs, and which I still didn't know it was blood at the time. I almost thought I was